Dricus Du Plessis is gonna smash Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 319. I don't care what the odds are, DDP is winning this fight. I am supremely confident in this pick. Hold that, I actually care a lot about what the odds say, and I am very excited to bet on DDP as an underdog.
Nobody said anything about dogs, bro. Chill out.
Betting on Dricus has been an infinite money glitch for me and many others that is slowly getting patched out. People have doubted this guy at nearly every step of his rise to middleweight gold. So take this opportunity to get Dricus at plus money, because after he whoops Khamzat on Saturday, we will not see DDP as an underdog again until he goes up to 205. And look, mate, I'm not surprised Khamzat is the favorite here. He's got a massive following, and there's a good reason this guy has so much hype behind him. He buzzsawed through most of his opponents with little to no resistance. But I'm telling y'all, none of that is going to matter on Saturday. Dricus Du Plessis is the nightmare matchup for Khamzat Chimaev. I want to make this clear. I am not only predicting a Looney Tunes style masterclass from DDP, but also a historic meltdown from the Dagestani fan base, or in this case, the Dagestan adjacent fan base, if you know your geography. We're gonna see salt levels we have not seen, ironically, since Khabib smashed McGregor. And don't get me wrong, this isn't a hate video for Khamzat. I think he's one of the most entertaining fighters in the entire UFC. Anyone who says otherwise is just wrong, objectively. He's not a fighter I always root for, but I am definitely tuning in on the rare occasion he actually makes it into the octagon. I'm just saying, the Borz fan base has got to be one of the most living through the fighter vicariously fan bases in the sport. So expect some all-time crash outs when DDP wins via falling piano. And amen, look, if you really think Khamzat is going to make it look easy against Dricus like he did all these other guys, go ahead, leave a comment down below and come back to this video after Saturday. We'll see whose take ages like milk. It's not gonna be mine. Well, and if it is mine, I won't be checking the comments anyway, since I'll be homeless after putting my entire life savings on DDP. So let me break this down for y'all. Let me break down why I am so confident in this pick. I went back through the tape and rewatched every Khamzat Chimaev fight. Really doesn't take that long since he did buzzsaw through most of his opponents. And when you look through Khamzat's UFC run, you can pretty much put his fights into two categories. The fights where Khamzat nukes his opponent, usually in the first round, and gets that dominant early finish. And then you have the fights that pass the halfway point and end up being very competitive going to decision. So let's quickly run through those 8 UFC wins, 6 of them being absolute nukings, and 2 being competitive. That's the Usman fight and the Burns fight. So quickly here, we have John Phillips. Khamzat was a 6-1 favorite over this guy. This is his UFC debut. No disrespect to the great John Phillips, but he did go 1-5 in the UFC, and clearly was not a middleweight looking at his physique. 4 seconds in, Khamzat's taking him down. He beats the piss out of the guy for a full 5 minutes. Credit to John Phillips for how tough he is. He actually made it to the second round. In the second round, Khamzat shoots again. This time, he waits a full 10 seconds and slices through the guy like butter, winning via Darce in round 2. Phillips had one more fight in the UFC before retiring from the sport. I found out while doing the research for this video that he recently made his combat sports return at BKFC 72, where he fought Fabio, who he beat in round 2 via TKO. So congrats to the Welsh wrecking machine. This is where Khamzat turns around 10 days later at welterweight to face Rhys McKee. He stepped in on short notice against McKee and was a 13-1 favorite. Now, Rhys McKee has been in and out of the UFC. He doesn't have a Wikipedia page, but he did just get his first UFC win, so congrats on that. He's now 1-4 in the UFC, and I actually kind of feel bad for this guy, given his first fight in the UFC was Khamzat Chimaev on short notice, and then he got Alex Morono, which is definitely not a bottom-of-the-barrel UFC name for a guy who's trying to get his first win. He gets cut, he goes to Cage Warriors, and he comes back. And look at the names he's had to fight since then. So, respect to Rhys McKee. I'm glad he just got his first win. But back on to Khamzat. The fight begins and Khamzat shoots before the timer even pops up on the UFC's UI. About 3 minutes later, he's TKO'd Rhys McKee and walks off taking 0 damage. Now this is where the hype is really starting to build, these quick turnarounds. And man, I wish Khamzat had kept this level of activity. I remember there were all these shots of him smiling back then. He was having the time of his life just obliterating his opponents. I remember the evil Khabib memes. This was a hype time to watch Khamzat. The next time we see Borz, it's a little under 2 months later against Gerald Meerschaert. Now, if you don't know GM3, you're not a hardcore fan, this is an actual name. Is this a guy who's been ranked and fighting for belts? No, but this is no longer bottom-of-the-barrel guys who are making their debut. Khamzat was a 6-1 favorite in this fight, and this was at 185. The question here was, can Khamzat do what he does on the ground to GM3, given GM3 is a submission specialist? Well, he didn't have to. He absolutely slimes Meerschaert out in about 17 seconds with a violent one-punch KO. This is where Khamzat starts to look unbeatable. A little over a year passes until Khamzat makes his return to the octagon, this time against a ranked opponent in Li Jingliang. The hype train is back in full force as he gets a choke in only 3 minutes. He shoots at about the 4-second mark, and he is, of course, again a massive favorite in this fight. And then we get on to the first competitive fight of Khamzat's career, the Gilbert Burns fight. This fight was an absolute banger, and it is a fight that you will probably point to if you're picking DDP. And for good reason. Khamzat Chimaev and Gilbert Burns went to war in this fight. I think some people have forgotten about this fight, and they've forgotten exactly how competitive it was. This is really the only time we've seen Khamzat get hurt. Gilbert dropped him, and he really exposed holes in Khamzat's striking that had likely been there this entire time and may well still be there, but you have to have a level of grappling to exploit them. If you can't avoid getting ragdolled by Khamzat, you won't be able to exploit any holes he has in his striking. In this fight, Chimaev is pushed to his limit, as was Durinho. So this is, like I said, the most competitive fight of his career where he was hurt and it was very back and forth. He was fucked at the end of round 2. The ref had to help Khamzat know which corner to go to because he was so rocked. So if you're looking to pick Dricus, go and rewatch this fight if you want to lose some confidence in Khamzat. Now, I'm not trying to shit on him for this performance. Khamzat showed something in this fight. He showed that he was a dog, and a Rottweiler at that kept coming forward and brawling when he was gassed out. The problem for Khamzat is, he can be a dog all he wants. Dricus is a fucking gorilla on roller skates, going down a hill with tiger blood and load shedding. But seriously, Gilbert is a small welterweight. He was a former lightweight. There's a reason he couldn't take Khamzat down despite trying. He got deep on some of these shots. So Khamzat gets by in this fight in a close decision that some people thought he lost, but most didn't. Next fight up, we have Kevin Holland. But we didn't have Kevin Holland originally. Remember, Chimaev was supposed to fight Nate Diaz, which in retrospect is an insane booking. I mean, it felt insane at the time. They were trying to do Nate so dirty for leaving the UFC. But Khamzat misses weight, and the UFC shuffles the card around. Mr. 4570 steps up, as he always does, and takes on Chimaev at a catch weight of 180 pounds. This fight is a perfect example of how overwhelming Khamzat's style can be, particularly when he has a sizable strength advantage, or in this case, a literal weight advantage. Khamzat secures a takedown not even 2 seconds into the fight, and despite Kevin Holland's pretty sweet attempts at Granby rolls, about 2 minutes in, he secured the Darce choke, and Kevin has to tap. So on to the next fight, Kamuru Usman. This is the best name on Khamzat's resume at the time, and probably still his best name now, him or Bobby Knuckles. The former champion steps in on short notice, 10 days out to replace Paulo Costa. This is post-head kick, up a weight class, 36-year-old Kamuru Usman. We've been hearing for years about how this guy's knees are shot, he can't even run, he has to walk on the grass, all that stuff. We did just see Usman back down at welterweight beat Buckley, so I don't want to say he's washed, but he's definitely no longer in his prime. 12 seconds into the fight, and Khamzat's already shot. About a minute in, he's got the back, and he dominates the rest of the first round, but he can't get the finish. Usman is too smart on the ground to get choked out. So in round 2, we see Khamzat come out a little differently. Now, he's able to stand with Kamuru and do all right. And keep in mind, Kamaru's not pushing a crazy pace like he normally would. This is a guy who went 5 rounds with Colby Covington, but this is up a weight class on 10 days notice. Kamuru was not in his normal shape for this fight. You cannot ignore that fact when talking about this fight. After striking for most of the round, Khamzat shoots a takedown and secures top control at about 34 seconds. Now, he lost this round on 2 of the judges' scorecards. He won it on 1, which I think is a bit interesting. Looking at round 3, he shoots a takedown at 15 seconds in, but this time he's not able to secure it. Usman's smiling afterwards because he knows, now you gotta strike with me. Personally, I scored this fight a draw, giving Khamzat a 10-8 in the first round and giving Kamuru rounds 2 and 3. You could argue that Khamzat won round 2, but I think round 3 is very clear. Nonetheless, one of the judges did give Khamzat round 3. This is not really the point of the video. I just think it's worth mentioning. I feel like this fight was very, very close. And what's worth mentioning, this is a post-head kick, 36-year-old, up a weight class on short notice Kamuru Usman. Take away any of those factors, that might have been enough for Kamuru to win this fight. Honestly, if this had just been a 5-round fight, I think Kamuru, despite the short notice, despite being up a weight class, would have been better going into round 4 and 5 than Chimaev. He does not have the cardio to push this pace for 5 rounds. He can't even do it for 2. So if he can't nuke DDP in round 1, or maybe early in round 2, what is that fight gonna look like? And on to the most recent performance, we have the Whittaker fight. Now, to be fully transparent, I thought this was going to be a hard fight for Khamzat. I thought we might see him get his first loss in this fight. And I certainly thought it would be more resemblant of the Usman and Burns fights. Whittaker's name clearly goes in the category with Usman and Burns, not with guys like Gerald Meerschaert and Rhys McKee. It's a former champion and beat so many great names at middleweight. But as you already know, Khamzat won this fight with zero problems. He shoots the takedown 14 seconds in, grapples against the cage for about 2 minutes, and eventually finds a dominant position on top of Whittaker, where he face cranks Bobby's teeth in. Again, I'm not trying to take away credit from Khamzat here. This is his best win in my opinion when you consider the name value crossed with how dominant the victory is. You could say Usman is slightly a better name, but the dominance of this fight versus the very close fight against Usman, this is Khamzat's best performance, and it's a massive, massive feather in his cap, okay? I'm not trying to take away from this win. Whittaker's not washed. We just saw RDR have to go life and death with Whittaker over 5 rounds a couple weeks ago just to scrape by with a split decision win. You can't ignore the factor that is Whittaker's structurally unsound teeth. That played a huge role in this fight. I'm not denying Borz has a nasty squeeze. Probably one of the nastiest squeezes pound for pound in the UFC, but it is a bit fluky in the sense that he would not be able to repeat this method of victory in other fights. It's kind of like winning after landing a perennial nerve kick. Yes, you threw that kick, full credit for the win, but I'm not gonna in the future predict, oh, he's just gonna hit the perennial nerve kick again. I mean, why didn't Cheeto just do that again against O'Malley in their rematch? It's not repeatable, right? So when we're talking about future fight outcomes, trying to predict them, trying to make bets, you have to think this way. Khamzat did take Whittaker down, and he got to a great position on him at middleweight, and this is not to be discounted looking at future middleweight matchups. This is an incredible victory. I'm just saying he's not going to face crank Dricus's teeth in. Hell, tell you what, if Khamzat Chimaev beats Dricus Du Plessis via face crank that caves in his teeth or possibly breaks his jaw, I will delete my YouTube channel. If you really think this is a repeatable technique and he could just do that to any opponent, why didn't he do it to Usman? He's had a lot of opponents in these same face crank positions. I have no reason to believe Dricus has structurally unsound teeth, so I can't put a ton of stock into this fight. So here we are. We have our 2 categories. Fights where Khamzat looks unbeatable, like inhuman, and the competitive fights where he does, well, look more human. So which category does DDP align more with? Well, if you ignore the Whittaker name from this category, I think DDP falls a lot more in line with Usman and Gilbert Burns than guys like Kevin Holland, Gerald Meerschaert, or Rhys McKee. And frankly, I think he's a substantially harder fight than any guy on this list. When we look at why these 2 fights are very different from the rest, Khamzat couldn't dominate either one of these guys on the ground. Burns due to his submission threat. Gilbert was a world champion in jiu-jitsu after all. Kamuru due to his wrestling pedigree, high fight IQ, and submission defense. But also because Kamuru is a very strong welterweight. I think he would look reasonably sized in there against a smaller middleweight like Robert Whittaker. And so when Khamzat can't dominate through the grappling, you see that opening. You get to see him striking. After that initial storm, Khamzat is not the same fighter. And I think it's because of so much of what he does is strength-based. I don't think he just has bad conditioning, like this guy's not putting in the work. From what I've seen, he's putting in a crazy amount of work. It's his style and his pacing that will never allow him to go for 15 minutes like that, and certainly not for 5 rounds. I just don't get how people don't understand this. They think if he brings in a new coach, he's gonna be able to sprint for 25 minutes straight. It's the same thing in track. Usain Bolt, this guy still holds the record for 100-meter dash and the 200. So why didn't he just run the 400 and the mile too? He's the fastest human, right? So he'll win every foot race. No, because no one can sprint a marathon. All right. So if Khamzat's going to fatigue massively in round 2 or 3 in these fights, what is he going to look like in the championship rounds? We've seen DDP go into deep waters with guys like Sean Strickland and Israel Adesanya. We know he can fight for 5 rounds. And y'all, I don't think it's just simply, can DDP survive the initial storm? If he can, then he'll win in the later rounds, out cardioing him. Khamzat round 1 or DDP via falling piano and superior cardio. No, that is discounting Dricus's skill set. And I know the memes, the Looney Tunes, he's goofy looking. I don't care. He is a really good striker. Like really good. Way better than Khamzat. If you want to say Khamzat's a better wrestler, I think that's fair. In all honesty. The resume does speak for itself and his credentials. But let's not forget, Dricus Du Plessis was 33-0 undefeated as an amateur kickboxer before he transitioned into MMA. He stood with guys like Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland, and even Robert Whittaker, who is that mutual opponent for them. And yeah, Khamzat did slice through Whittaker like butter, and this might sound backwards to you if you've got a smooth brain. What I'm saying is, Khamzat made that fight look easier than Dricus, but MMA math doesn't work when you only do addition and subtraction. You gotta do MMA calculus, MMA linear algebra. If Khamzat had to just strike only with Israel Adesanya, he would get slimed out. You don't believe me? Okay, well, he got pieced up by a objectively over-the-hill Kamuru Usman on 10 days' notice up a weight class. If Gilbert Burns, the former lightweight with a jiu-jitsu background, can drop you, what's gonna happen when DDP hits him over the head with that anvil? And that's the thing, y'all. That's the thing. He is going to strike with DDP. Du Plessis will force him to strike, and Dricus will connect. In my opinion, Khamzat's only path to victory is that early grappling blitz and snatching up a choke. It's a possibility, I suppose, that he grabs onto a Darce or DDP makes some goofy mistake, but I'm here to tell y'all, it's not gonna work on Dricus like it did these welterweights. This is the first opponent Khamzat's gonna face where he doesn't have a significant strength advantage. Remember, the only legit middleweight he faced is Robert Whittaker, one of the smallest guys in the division. The other middleweight he fought, GM3, they didn't grapple, okay? But we just saw this on display versus De Ridder. Whittaker is a former welterweight and has always been undersized at 185. DDP was too big for welterweight. He couldn't keep fighting there. He is a real middleweight with that crazy South African Boer strength. I mean, have y'all seen that clip of him defending a takedown from like 4 other fighters? This looks like a rugby play. So let me put this in football terms for my countrymen. He's got the strength of a prime Bill Dotrieve. He's got the bulldozer strength, y'all. And he kisses his coach too. Also like a prime Bill Dotrieve. Weird. Anyways, I wouldn't be shocked if Dricus tries shooting some takedowns in this fight himself. I mean, he says he's going to, especially later on when Khamzat starts fatiguing, and we know that's going to happen if this fight passes about the 7-minute mark. Considering how much strength Khamzat uses in these takedowns, I think he's gonna fatigue even quicker against Dricus. For one, you may see an extra adrenaline dump given this is the biggest fight of his career, the biggest stage. He's finally fighting for the belt, and he's a huge favorite as the challenger, but I don't put too much stock into that. Just think about it like this. When you do resistance training in the gym, you get tired quicker the heavier the weight is. He is going to have to push harder against more retard strength against Dricus Du Plessis than he's ever faced before. I just cannot see Khamzat big brothering DDP. DDP grew up with Steel Neil Du Plessis as a big brother. No one's gonna big brother this guy. We saw Gilbert Burns, the former lightweight, deep on some single legs, but he literally was not strong enough to finish them. We saw Khamzat outmuscle so many guys, and he is freakishly strong. I do think Khamzat's stronger than most middleweights, but Dricus is also stronger than most middleweights. So I'm not trying to downplay his wrestling skill set, but with so much of it being strength-based, I just don't think it's going to be enough. He's not going to get that early finish on DDP, even if Khamzat can hold him down for a round or two. Despite what the odds suggest, this is an uphill battle for Chimaev. He is going to have to work harder for each and every takedown he gets in this fight versus the most dangerous opponent he's ever faced. Not to mention, DDP probably has the best chin of any of the guys he's faced. I really don't see Khamzat winning this fight. So that's my prediction, y'all. DDP via being a shredded, sick cunt. And this would be a great time for me to run a gambling promo since I will be putting my life savings on Dricus. But seeing as I don't even have 1,000 subscribers and much less a sponsor for this video, I'll leave y'all with this. If you did make it to the end of the video, I have a reward for you. This is a picture of Bill Dotrieve from King of the Hill with Dricus's face edited over it. I thought I'd use this in the video, but I didn't. Thought it was kind of funny. So there you go. Cheers, boys.